If you thought last season was deep,
You haven't heard anything yet.
this is boots to boots.
The moments where everything you thought you knew about yourself changes.
Because this is the stuff no one wants to talk about.
But it's what needs to be talked about.
Healing doesn't happen alone.
It happens through shared experience.
So lace up your boots.
Join the conversation.
We'll be talking to you. Boots to Boots was born out of the idea that when the combat boots come off, your identity shifts.
Today's guest is living that in real time. Martin Foster is a newly retired Air Force veteran and host of Passing the Torch podcast.
But he didn't just walk away from service, he found a way to stay connected to his purpose and community.
This convo is about what happens when the mission doesn't end, it just changes. Welcome, Martin.
Steve, Deonna, thank you so much. What an honor it is to be here. First, I got to make sure that hopefully everyone in video can see this, that I have pledged my allegiance to Deonna. I'm now officially a virtuoso guy, but
That's okay.
that's instead of Air Force, this is the name tag I wear now.
So no more chair force.
No more chair force. You know what's funny, Steve? I was actually talking to someone about this is totally random, but I was talking about you in a good way the other day.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, in Deonna, like I'm sure you guys have always seen stories about stolen valor, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I recorded with Steve around this time last year, within the first like 3 minutes, you instantly took a shot at me about the chair force, right?
We have to.
I mean, you have to, but to me, that's the true test of stolen valor. If someone's 100% polite and respectful and courteous, from another service member, like there's no way, man. Like that's how you know it's fake.
That's so funny.
If someone comes in right away and just starts taking shots at you, that's like you're a veteran. Like I can tell. I can smell it.
It's just that's the brotherhood of it. It doesn't matter what branch it is. Like we're always going to give crap to each other. And granted, it's you chose Air Force instead of Marines, so that makes me better than you. But it's
Marines.
It's just
really cool
that comes with the brotherhood and the camaraderie of it. Doesn't matter what branch you are. We're all there for each other, and as much crap as we give each other.
No, that's so true though, because thinking about it, when Steve like gives other veterans crap, I'm always like, you all chose to serve. You all were that selfless. And he's like, no, I was more. And so what you're saying, Martin, is so true because I'm the civilian. Like, no, there's no competition. Deep down, I married a Marine. There is a competition.
Well, Deonna, what's funny about you too is I've listened to a lot of you guys' podcasts, and you talk about is it POGs that Steve called? But I've heard you. Yeah, I've heard you say that too, and it makes me laugh and stuff because it's like he's rubbed off on you.
1000%, yeah.
Even when we did the Marine Corps half marathon, I was explaining to her what a shit bag was, and I'm like sitting there and I'm like, "That's a shit bag," and she goes, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, look at them." And then later on, we're on a little bit of a run. She sees a group of Marines. She's like, "Oh, they look like shit bags." I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "But
so great."
Instead of speaking about the Marines, we're here to talk about you.
Yes.
Obviously, newly retired. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. 23 years.
Hell
it's
yeah.
Amazing.
23 and me.
23 and me.
I'm going off of it. But anyway, to talk about you, why was it the Air Force your choice? Well, like, what did it teach about yourself by joining the Air Force?
That's a great question. So I got to kind of backtrack. I first had interest in joining the military back when I was 14 years old. And I remember going to talk to a Navy recruiter when I was on spring break. And this is in 1995. And then my senior year of high school, 1999, once I turned 18, I went to talk to the Navy recruiter again. And I went to MEPS a couple times, but I got disqualified because I had asthma as a kid and the Navy wouldn't take me. So at that point, I thought, and there was no way. My dad was a retired Army. He was like, there's no way. And we grew up in an Army town. He was like, there's no way you're going to join the Army. It's either the Air Force or the Navy, but no Army, no Marines. So kind of flash forward, I thought that was it. I didn't think I was going to be able to get into the military because I had asthma as a kid. Then 9/11 happened. I was at that point a sophomore in college. And I was actually working 3 jobs. I was waiting tables during the day. I'm sorry, I was working at Radio Shack during the day, and then I was waiting tables at Outback during the night. And then I was delivering newspapers in the early morning. But anyway, while going to school, 9/11 happened. The very next day, I went to go sign up, and I got turned around. And they wouldn't take there was like a 5-hour waiting list just for people to go get in to talk to the recruiter. So the next day I actually went to I drove an hour away to go talk to a different recruiter, and that was the Air Force recruiter. And at that point I had some friends that joined the Air Force before 9/11. They loved it, and went through MEPS, the whole processing, and they actually took me. Oh, yeah. And then I took the ASVAB and the jobs that were available to me. So I'm actually colorblind. So that really limited my,
asthma really and colorblind.
Asthma and color. Yeah. If I was Steve and if I were a tag team, if you and I were tag team, that would be our tag team name, asthma and colorblind. And I have both. I don't know if you have asthma or colorblind. And
dumb grunt.
Dumb grunt. Yeah.
Crayon eater.
So I eventually obviously got accepted to the Air Force, but what was really, it was a blessing in disguise. So I found out that I was qualified to work an intelligence job in the Air Force, but the only one based on because of my limitation was I was a 1 and 2 Charlie, a signals analyst by trade in the Air Force, an intelligence analyst. So I actually learned signals intelligence in Morse code, and that's what I went to school for an entire year. And I went to school in Fort Huachuca, Arizona, followed by Pensacola, Corey Station, Florida. And, I trained for a year, and my very first duty station was in Misawa, Japan, northern Japan.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, my God. And this is before. So I got there on January 9th of 2004. And, social media was like Facebook and all was starting to come around. But this is like the kind of the last days without social media. So it was just a camaraderie that I was stationed there. My wife and I were stationed there for 5 years, and I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything. We're still friends with a lot of those people. It was such a great time, but I've had a lot of time and reflection over the past year. So each of you guys were on my podcast on separate episodes this time last year, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And at that point I had just hit the retirement button, and here I am now post-retirement. And it flew by. I mean, I think about that time in Japan and just the 23 years. I mean, my daughter who's 14 put it to me like this. She was like, "Dad, you did 2 decades, 2 and a third decades," is what she said. And it's just crazy to think. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. There was a lot of highs, a lot of lows, a lot of heartbreak, but man, there were some great times too that I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, speaking of, and I think throughout this podcast, we're going to touch so much on it of your retirement and this transition you've kind of been through this last year. But talking about that, I mean, it's been 1 year. And so does it still feel surreal? Do you still feel like you're going to get up and go to work tomorrow? Or, how raw is that? Or are you over it? How are you like emotionally dealing with that?
I'm very emotional. So for a couple different reasons. So my actual effective retirement date was 1 November of 2025. So actually, just 3 months ago, a couple of days ago. But my last day in uniform was actually May 8th of 2025. That's when I had my retirement ceremony. Yeah. And I remember, Deonna, I messaged you because my retirement, I had it at the Air Force Museum, and the display was the actual Air Force One that Kennedy's body was brought back on, his remains, and where Lyndon Johnson took the oath. I remember I was like, man, Deonna would think this was cool.
That's
right?
So freaking cool.
So that's the background. Yeah. So if you look at those pictures, I mean, that's the Kennedy Air Force One. But I remember I gave my speech, and and I mean, I didn't cry. A lot of people cried during the retirement speech, but I thought I was going to, but I didn't. But I remember I had this whole written out speech, but the very last thing that I said was, and this was impromptu, was that these are the good old days. But I mean, just everything leading up, there were 350 people who attended my ceremony. That I didn't expect that many people. I was afraid no one was going to show up, and there was 350 people.
Wow.
And I remember I felt closure. And I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people don't get, is they don't get closure whether they separate and transition out of the military or just retire. I actually got closure. And then over the summer, my kids were out of school. I took my family to Europe for 2 weeks. So the summer just kind of flew by. I didn't have time to process it. And then the day that it actually hit me was Halloween, because that was my last actual day in the Air Force. Someone randomly mailed me at my logo, and I'm going to put it up here next to the Teddy Roosevelt Man in the Arena thing. They mailed me a logo for my podcast. And that's when it kind of hit me. And then the next morning I woke up and I'm thinking like, man, I'm officially a veteran. Yeah, it is. And it's still processing a lot of emotions. So I just turned 44 back in November as well. And my dad died when he was 51. Right. So I think about that over the past year. I've thought about that a lot.
Yeah.
And that was one of the main driving forces why I decided to retire, because I knew if we all knew we had 7 years left to live, hopefully we all live longer, right? But if I knew if I was going to die in 7 years, it's like like any of us, like, what would you do? Like, well, you'd spend more time with family, obviously, but then you'd be like, you know what? I want to start that podcast. I just need to go for it. Or I want to go travel to this place. So, I love the military. I did 23 years. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm glad it's over. Just because I'm ready for a new adventure. And I don't know what that new adventure is yet, though.
Well, so the next question I was going to ask, is there a moment that it hit you, but is there a moment that it hit your family now, like with readjusting into the normal life of not being in the Air Force after 23 years? And here you are home every day now and all your attention's there. Like, has there been a moment where like your wife and your daughter have kind of said like, oh, wow, like you're home?
Steve, that's a great question and great thought, because that has happened multiple times. So my son is 7 years old. He'll actually be 8. Yeah, my son, he'll be 8 next week. I walk him to the bus stop every single morning, and I pick him up from the bus stop every afternoon as well. Or I'm home every single day when my daughter walks in through the door, and she's 14. She's in 8th grade. So it's just things like that, and not to me specifically, because why would kids tell you, positive compliments directly? But they tell my wife, "Hey, we're glad that dad's home," or just random things. So this is, Deonna, the other night actually got headshots done.
Yeah.
And for the first time. So pretty excited. Congrats. But it was, it was in Columbus, about an hour away, and I live in Dayton. But anyway, and it was in the evening time. So I was driving back around this time, around 7:00 at night. And when I came home, my wife said, "Oh, my son's name is Bowen." She's like, "Bowen really missed you while you were gone." So there's just moments like that where the kids definitely realize, definitely like having me home. And I've been cooking more. My wife, my wife and I go out to either. So I've been cooking a lot more because I just have the energy. And, like I made this shrimp pasta that I'm just going to say it. It was pretty bomb. It was pretty good. Like the other day, like I got to give myself some credit. Just things like that. Those. So Kurt Warner was on my podcast, and I think Steve, I'm
so jealous of that.
Yeah.
I think I sent you one of the questions.
As a matter of fact, you did. Yeah, that's right. I said, hey, you sure did. Steve Maclin would help me research for the Kurt Warner episode. But there's this clip that, and it actually just got shared on social media by someone. With a pretty big account, but there's this clip in the episode where he talks about what type of practice player are you, more than just being there, taking your wife out on date night for the anniversary, or, attending your kid's soccer game on Saturday, but who are you on that Tuesday afternoon, or that, Thursday at 10 for your family, just those, whatever your schedule allows, but what type of practice player are you? And that's why I feel like I've been able to be or improve at over the past, since this whole process, this transition, is being a better practice player. It's been awesome.
Yeah, and it must be so rewarding then to like get that kind of affirmation. It's through your wife about your son, saying I miss dad, and like I automatically thought, if you had 7 years left to live, like, do you want your son to be able to say, oh, I miss him because he left me for 1 hour, or to say, oh, well, dad was never really around? Like, those two things are so opposite ends of the spectrum. Which one do you want to be on?
Yeah, and it's my daughter. So I missed her first 3 birthdays and the first 2 Christmases because of deployments and TDYs, and she doesn't remember that, but I do. Right? There's just like those moments, and actually, going back to my retirement speech, it was almost like a Slumdog Millionaire mindset where I'm giving this speech, culminating my career, and all these random moments were flashing before my eyes. And these moments, I mean, there were some big ones, but it was a lot of those random things that you wouldn't even think twice about. The random going out to lunches, or grabbing coffee or just a hallway conversation. Those small moments. And I feel like I get to have those more small moments with my family now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like you kind of had that when we did the Marine Corps half marathon.
Yeah.
And it was like, we're on base at Camp Lejeune and like, yeah, we're walking, we're not running. We're walking 13 miles, right?
But then we're going past like the old A Street barracks where I was showing where the chow, and they, of course, at Lejeune, they updated a lot of things. So like they have new buildings and different areas. I'm like, I used to be here. This is our armory. This is our motor pool. And like, it was just cool to like, because I never pictured myself showing her that. Like, I never thought in a million years we'd be walking around on Camp Lejeune, and then afterwards
and drinking a beer. Yeah.
Walking around and not a person saying anything to us.
Yeah,
that's what I think is really cool too, from Deonna's perspective, is the fact that you guys met after. Because Steve, you had been out for a couple years, right?
Yeah, because I was 07 to 2011, and we didn't meet until 2018. 2018.
Yes.
And that's what I love about, one of the many things I admire about you, Deonna, is the fact that, you guys met, started dating, and eventually got married, but like well after Steve had been out of the Marines, but you were such an avid supporter. You offer a unique, rare insight based on, you're a spouse of a military veteran. Yeah. Years after they separated.
Yeah, and that was such a big piece of like creating Boots to Boots in this platform, was like, I think a lot of the things that we experienced as a couple service related and Steve had never addressed before. And I'm so fortunate to be like the person he addressed it with and felt comfortable and that I was able to create a safe space for him. But then it's like, okay, what do we do with this? Like, we kind of have a responsibility then to say like, oh, we can reach other people who are struggling with the same things you're struggling with, or me being like a veteran spouse, 7 years post-service, like how can we re-engage you in that community and find that piece of you that maybe you're missing? And so that was a really big piece of why I wanted to start this podcast, was to connect him back to fellow veterans like you and talk to advocates and, really help create the community that you are so a part of.
Yeah.
But then I guess to piggyback off of that, like, was passing the torch always something you wanted to do post-military, or did it just like kind of fall in your lap?
So great question. So just going back to my childhood and even in high school, I never felt like I fit in, or we'd always have the career days. And I'm like, and there was just something about traditional jobs that nothing sounded appealing to me. And I went to college for a couple years and I hated it because nothing sounded, I was like, man, nothing sounded like I'd be okay doing that for the rest of my life. So I always felt like an outlier and an outcast. But I've always been drawing to the things I always excelled at. Was I did JROTC in high school, and I would be the person.
You look the type.
Yeah, I know. Like, someone told me, God, I don't remember who it was. You know the movie? What's the movie with Animal House? And it's like, oh, you remind me of Kevin Bacon's character, the ROTC guy. But I'd be marching all the people and all. I had no problem doing that. And then I was in a boy band in the late 90s. So I was
Backstreet Boys are NSYNC.
So that's a great question too, because if you recall at the time, they were so popular, but there were so many, we probably modeled more after Backstreet Boys, but there were so many boy bands at the time that we basically stole a couple different, like we stole things from all the different groups to make our own. We were horrible. Obviously, it's why I joined the military, because we sucked. But anyway, so I always had like a thing for performing. Mm-hmm. And then, I got into, throughout my military career, whether I was deployed, I started writing like comedy sketches or skits. And then I got into improv and I started performing for, just performing. And then I got into acting. And then I started doing a little bit of broadcasting, just staying. So it always kind of led to that. And then in 2014, I started a sports podcast because I don't know how, I would just meet all these athletes just randomly. And so I started doing all these interviews and posting them to YouTube, and they would do pretty well. But sports is so hard to keep up with. But the thing I really was most passionate about, there was a 7-year time in my career where it was a really rough patch. It was 7 years of suck. I don't know how I got through it, but I started my podcast because I couldn't find mentorship in the present. I was constantly looking for mentorship in the past, and there was just I just had not good supervisors, not good examples. Yeah, so I couldn't find what I was looking for in the present. And on New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2017, I made a resolution. I was at a friend's house or at a party, and I said, I'm going to start a leadership podcast. No, people started laughing at me. A week later, I recorded my first episode. It was with General John. I didn't even have a name for my podcast. This is in January of 2018 at this point. So I just celebrated 8 years. General John Jumper, so he was the Air Force Chief of Staff when I first came in 2002. He was my very first guest. And then since then, actually tomorrow I'm going to publish episode 117.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Yeah. But the first 6 years I only did, I think, 25 episodes. So really the past 2 years, I'm bad at math. So I've done like 90 episodes or whatever over the past 2 years.
Wow.
Because that's when I started what I call turning pro, because I like, in Deonna, to kind of like answer your question, I just had this passion where podcasting, this is something I will stay up till 2:00 in the morning researching or, and it's not that I have to, it's because I want to, and I'm tired, but I'm also fueled in the same way. Like I pour so much of myself into my podcast because I felt like it helps me add value to other people. That's what I want to do, is I want to add value to people in their lives, and podcasting is my way to make that happen.
Hey guys, if this was a conversation you needed to hear today, let us know.
Like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Lace up your boots and join the conversation.
And we'll be talking to you. No, it's funny too, like how you kind of said how like people just instantly laughed at you for wanting to start a podcast. As like for me, when I got into pro wrestling, just out of the Marine Corps, like I was at a barbecue with a bunch of my friends, and my buddy Dave, he saw the flyer for my first indie show, and a bunch of other guys, wait, you're trying to wrestle? And they're all laughing about it, making a joke about it. Like, what are you gonna really try this? Like, what's your goals? I was like, go to WWE. Like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And maybe Hosk, Shilp, and Prince were the only three that kind of like go fucking get it, man. And like everybody else kind of laughed about it. But then a year later, when I got to WWE, everybody's sitting there kissing my ass, sending me a text.
Like, hey Steve, can I get tickets to the Royal Rumble or whatever?
It's just funny how like when you have a vision and an idea, and you always see the cliches of like those motivational quotes of like everybody's gonna laugh at you until you're successful with it, and then they're gonna come to you for everything about it.
Oh my gosh, but same thing. Like I grew up wanting to be a professional wrestler. I was, 9, being like, I'm gonna be headlining WrestleMania for the WWE Women's Championship. That was my dream. And everyone laughed and made fun of me. And like the biggest bully tactic, I could say, people would be like, okay, John Cena, like, why don't you Batista bomb me? Just like stupid kid stuff. But yes, now it's like, it's so funny because I've been in touch with some people from my hometown who are facing like a lot of legislative issues right now. And I'm one of the biggest names, like I am the biggest name to come out of my hometown. And so everyone's like, you need to be a part of this. And can you put this on social media? And, just to kind of kick off the legislation efforts to change some stuff in to benefit the town. And I'm really excited to do it. But it's like, oh, you're the same people that were laughing at my dream.
Exactly.
That's where you learn though, and you tell people the success story out of it, where it's like people laughed at you at first, but then here you are with the podcast, and now you're not in a uniform anymore. So do you feel any different in any way then with the mission and what you're trying to put towards that mentorship with?
Is it almost like more satisfying to do it post-service than it is while you were in the service?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm 19 years old again. I feel like that, there's that feeling that summer after you graduate high school where you've committed your life requirements at that point, right? Like the barrier to entry into adulthood is a high school diploma or equivalent, right? So I felt like, I can remember that summer after graduating from high school, I felt like the world was at my fingertips, and it was just, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to go to college. And so there was just this freedom, like I broke free from these chains. Not like the Air Force was holding me back or anything, but there would be so much red tape that I had to deal with, or just things that people would had to give me their 2 cents just because, and it was just frustrating. So I definitely feel more free. And I still like, I keep my podcast positive. I don't talk about, politics or like hot topics that are for clickbait or anything like that. I keep everything focused, but it just feels better. Or there were people who outranked me who basically tried to force their way on my podcast when I was still active duty.
Huh.
Yeah, and it was just and I would work around. I wouldn't have them on. I'd come up with some reason, but yeah, it definitely feels more free. And now I feel, because before, trying to balance active duty and like so I was in charge of I wasn't in charge. I was one of the top leaders for an organization of 1,200 people, of military and civilians.
Mhm.
So time wise, I just didn't have any. That's why if you go back and look into I said the first 6 years of my podcast, I think I did 20 something episodes. But then May 8th of last year was my last day in uniform. If you look between May and December 31st, I did like for the entire year last year, I did 42 episodes of calendar year 25.
Wow.
And then this year already, I've published 8 episodes. So it's just allowed me, now that I have more time, just I can move the ball further.
Yeah, well, and you're like, I think that's the key to like social media and the algorithm, and right, you just need to be consistent and you need to post at certain times and tag
Yeah.
certain things. But like, you really, and you've helped us too in terms of like embedding yourselves in the veteran community. And so like, it must at the same token feel rewarding to like still be a part of that community and be around like-minded people that don't have to then deal with like the red tape and the bureaucracy of being active duty
and crappy chains of command.
Yeah, exactly. And I would tell you, and I feel like I still have a long way to go, and I have so much fire and just so much passion and fuel, but I feel like I am exactly where I'm supposed to be. So just all of a sudden, and I think I messaged you guys about the conference back in September. It's going to be in Tampa this year, the Military Influencer Conference.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I couldn't think of the name of it. And Tampa's even better.
Mick you'll hear Mick, MIC, but everyone calls it Mick, right? But anyway, it rotates every 2 years. So it was in Atlanta the past 2 years. It's going to be in Tampa starting this year, and most likely at least next year as well. But anyway, and I know you guys are in Orlando, but I went there in September, and it was my second time attending, and there was just a lot of good things were just happening for me at that conference. And then, so I actually did a panel where, along with some other people, but I spoke about authenticity and storytelling. And so someone saw me speak on that, and then they were putting together a veteran conference in LA, actually held at UCLA. And they said, hey, do you want to come MC this event for us? And this is like short notice. I think they contacted me on a Wednesday, and I flew out like that Monday or whatever the time was, right? So I did that, and that's all because now I have more time to do these things, but I've put more time, energy, and focus into it, and it's unlocked other opportunities. So I did those 2 things. Separate from all that, if you recall back in the summer, there was 3 episodes I released in a row, not by design, it's just how it worked out. Kurt Warner, Nate Boyer, and Cody Keenan. Cody Keenan was Obama's speechwriter. So those 3 episodes kind of leveled up my podcast. So I saw a big growth in numbers wise after those 3 podcasts. Someone actually called me on Instagram, and I didn't know who this person was.
You call on Instagram?
You can call on Instagram, but
You
like,
can.
Am I that untech savvy?
no, but okay, the people who call me on Instagram are like
don't need to know.
yes,
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean? Like somewhere across the world that don't speak English. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I didn't answer, and then someone else called me about that person. Hey, this person's trying to get in touch with you, and then they called me again on Instagram. So I took this phone call, and that ended up being a great opportunity that presented itself to it as well. It's a guy named Timothy Clun. He goes by TK. He puts on, and this is separate than the Military Influencer Conference. So it's just that's what's really cool. These opportunities from different worlds, are like the same focus, the same arena, but like different paths. TK called me and says, hey, I got the celebrity softball game I do in Dallas each year. It's celebrities and veterans. You want to come do some media for me? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I go and do that. And I don't know if you guys saw the clips, but I posted 25 clips from that from that one game that I went
Yeah,
to.
I saw them. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, and then I just he actually was just on my podcast. TK was last week, and I'm gonna that'll be on in a couple weeks. But he invited me back again this year. But there's a lot of opportunities that have come from that as well. Like there are interviews with other people, like celebrities and veterans that I met at that game. You know, so it's just these things are naturally starting to happen for me, and it feels so good. I'm not making any money, so anyone watching this, if you want to sponsor my podcast, I'll take it. But 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 man, I feel so rejuvenated, and I just have a lot of fight in me, and I love it.
And that's the one cool thing, though. Like when we linked up, and then seeing you in Dayton at the one Revolver
Yeah.
show.
Mhm.
So it's like we get to build that relationship. You meet
Yeah.
people, you network, and it just opens up a lot of discussions with people you never thought you'd be talking to. And even a few weeks back, we were talking to Dr. Pamela Hall about PTSD. And so with PTSD and veterans and how getting their help shapes their post-service journey, like what do you think keeps vets silenced when you are going to these conventions? And like it's a good networking thing, but are veterans actually just talking about being in the suck together and dealing with all the BS, or is it just business straight down the middle?
Now, I think both, right? I think you know, the answer to the part about being silent, I think there's just a stigma, and especially for men. However, on the flip side, on the other side, I think it's that stigma starting to slowly erase to where it's becoming more accepted. You know, and Steve, I know we're roughly the same age. There's just something about our generation of, you know, men born in the 80s where, you know, we grew up with action movies where the model, the alpha male type was Rambo and you know, Arnold, and these guys who are 6'2", 230 that can hold the bazooka in one arm and, you know, a 50 cal in the other and somehow never run out of ammo, right?
And that's all we dreamed of.
And it's all we dreamed of, smoking a cigar, right?
Yeah. Still do it.
Still do it. So I think because of that, like, you know, it just felt like, man, well, I'm not that. So I think a lot of people, and I've been in that situation too, where I felt less than, even though I served 23, you know, ultimately 23 years, where there were people who felt like you weren't veteran enough. And to me, it's like, if someone serves, whether they serve 2 years, 4 years, you know, like we all volunteered to do this. You know, so I always have respect for veterans, but yeah, I think there's just people just felt shameful, or they weren't a good enough veteran. But I think, again, in a good way, that's starting to erode. But then I've seen also too, where companies on the business side of it, where companies don't want to hire veterans, or if they do want to hire veterans, they don't want to. It's more for laborious type jobs. They don't think that veterans can handle, you know, C-suite or CEO type jobs. Right. I think that's starting to change. Mm-hmm. But I think that's starting, like, that's changing as well, because the amount of, and maybe my eyes have just been more open to it over the past year, but there's a lot of programs, and it's almost kind of overwhelming in a way. A lot of programs, especially on the business side, to help veterans, you know, land, you know, good jobs and everything. But I think I think the term veteran is changing. And then in addition to that, I think society is starting to look at veterans with a fresh set of eyes.
Yeah, and that's kind of, you know, to piggyback off the conversation with Dr. Hall, it's kind of what she said off camera to us was, you know, the word veteran has so many different definitions through time, and we need to respect each of those, but like society needs to also embrace all of those. You know, you all have signed an oath to do a job that the rest of us could never even imagine doing. And so I think that as these stories come out and you guys start to tell your stories and more people are breaking that stigma of, no, I'm going to talk about PTSD. I'm going to talk about, you know, the things that affected me and why I am the way I am, or even on our platform, who I'm going to be post that service, will really start to break down those walls, and people hopefully won't feel as silenced. So, and that's important work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to piggyback off of that too, then like talking with veterans, those aren't the only people you talk to. Athletes, of all the people, like, what is that one common thread then that's pushed them to keep going in times of doubt, when they need to step up and be a leader for their family or for themselves? Like, what is that one common factor with all of the people you've spoken to?
I think just purpose, or they feel like they have a mission or some type of drive, a want and a desire that's bigger than themselves. Yeah, that's what immediately comes to mind.
Yeah.
Some type of purpose.
Yeah, that's funny because I feel like I've told your mom that for the last year. His parents just moved to Florida, and
Oh, nice.
Semi-retired, but didn't know what they wanted to do next. And all I kept telling them is they're going through, they're relearning their relationship, relearning each other. And I just kept saying, like, once you figure out what you want to do, like, all of these problems you've never had will dissipate, because purpose is what drives everybody.
My purpose is sitting right next to me, so. No, it's true though. But once you kind of find your common thread or what your purpose is, everything else kind of just falls into place.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of feel that way. It's the same thing in the military. Like, if you take care of your weapon, your body, your gear, and then yourself, was always the motto for us, at least in the Marine Corps. I don't know about an Air Force, but like, weapon, gear, body, self, yourself always comes last.
Yep.
But it's the mission. It's what gets everything for your purpose and what you want to have as an outcome.
Yeah, and something you guys can definitely relate to is, regardless of, even if you're the biggest wrestling star in the entire world, there's always going to be someone hating or criticizing, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that, now that I have, I'm still truly finding my purpose, but I feel like I'm on the right path. But one thing that's helped me, there's a quote a phrase that I heard 3 years ago, and I actually said this in my retirement speech, but it's helped me stay focused so much and drown out the noise. But is, we don't grow despite the storms, we grow because of the storms. And that phrase has just gotten me through so much. And it's like, you know what? And I have, I have my goals, things I'm trying to accomplish. And it's like, you know what, if this person or this opportunity or this situation doesn't align with that, one, I don't care what they have to say, because they're not in my arena, right? They're not in your wrestling ring. They're not, in this process of this transition that I'm going through.
Yeah.
And it's tough, but it's getting less tough. It's still hard, but it's easier to handle the more I stay focused and more. And then also what I realized too is, when you're driven or when you're going towards something, there's times I felt lonely and isolated, or that I'm posting to the void. But then, like, someone messaged me on LinkedIn yesterday talking about how they love my podcast and they've listened to whatever amount of episodes. It's just like, man, like, people like, sometimes these tough challenges and these journeys, they're meant to shed whatever you don't need. And then it makes way for things that you do need, and things that are, or people that are there to help you.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I had two thoughts while you were talking, and one was, I saw a quote, and it was talking about friendships and the people in your lives, and it's something to the effect of, the people who always that want to support you aren't always the people that are closest to you. And it's funny, because talking about, like, being made fun of for wanting to be a wrestler and all these things, like, I, on MySpace back in the day, was like in deep with the wrestling community, right? And some of the people who, 10-year-old Deonna might have been like, this is my wrestling best friend, lived in LA or lived in San Diego or lived in Chicago. I had never met those people, but they were like-minded and they loved what I loved. And yeah, we messaged on Facebook or MySpace, but we found common ground, and they are now still people who support me in my path as an actual wrestler, and will tweet at me or DM me, and we still follow each other's journeys. So I feel like even if that person isn't the person sitting next to you, there is that person who is being affected by the things you do, or the words you have to say,
or the person you interview.
Yeah. And then the other piece of that too is, like, I felt the same way, like, bringing even a podcast idea to Steve, where I was like, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but at like 2:30 in the morning last night, I had this idea.
Yeah. The best ideas come at that time.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we laugh, because
that's when I do my best work, at 2:00 in the morning. And
I'm passed out next to her, snoring away and farting.
Yeah. And I was even worried that he was going to be like, dude, absolutely not,
Yeah.
And I just said, this is the concept. And I think that being a veteran is your superpower, and everyone knows someone who served and can identify with some of the feelings that I've dealt with while being a veteran and going through that transition. And so I think we could really reach people. Just give me 1 or 2 episodes. And if they don't go anywhere, then at least we can say we tried, and at least we dipped our foot in the water, and that wasn't our purpose. And yeah, like same thing. Now we're season 2, 20 episodes deep. And it's like, same thing for us, only growing in terms of the opportunities that are coming our way, potential post-wrestling opportunities for us. So
it just opens up so many doors. And again, with connections and with just meeting people, because I would always just looked at you as a wrestling fan. I would have never thought we'd be sitting here like this. And
exactly.
Dayton, when I'm bringing you behind the curtain and just kind of hanging out and introducing you to everybody and having a couple beers. Like, it's fun, the people we meet along the way. And
we have your challenge coin up here.
We do.
I see that. I think that means, like, God, my heart is just bursting right now. I want to give you guys a shout out because, we have met in person. And Deonna, I've actually seen you wrestle live 3 times now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then for Steve, I remember, it's in the other room. There's a book that I have with like dream guests, right? It's 150 people. It's names I wrote down 3 years ago. And and that's, man, do we have some time for me to kind of go down a rabbit hole?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Fine. Go for it. Yeah.
That's the thing with podcasting, it connects people. Kurt Warner is my absolute favorite quarterback of all time. And I never would have been able to talk to Kurt Warner if it wasn't for my podcast, unless it was maybe at some fan convention where I got to take a photo with him and he asked me how I'm doing and that's it. Right. Or, I got to talk to you guys, but I remember writing Steve's name down because I think like 3 or 4 years ago, I Googled wrestlers that are military veterans. Right. Mm-hmm. And you guys all know that, you know which ones are.
I'm number 1.
There's only one that matters though. Right. I need to cross this out, put Steve Maclin guy. So, but I remember, following Steve and then I just, and then I'm a wrestling fan, so it was cool. Whereas I don't know if we would have had that conversation had it not been for the podcast. And then when I went to that show here in Dayton last April, like Steve was just walking by and he recognized me right away. And then I was like, man, this is awesome. We started chatting and then he was like, you want to go backstage? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to go back, and talk to Deonna, right? But it's just, that's what it does. And it's so cool. And I think people relate. What's cool about you guys and your podcast specifically is people can relate to both of you, but for completely different reasons. Right. So like Steve is more than just a wrestler. He's a Marine veteran. Right. Mm-hmm. And, Deonna, like you're more than just a wrestler. You're Miss Academic. You're the, a fan of Jackie O and Eleanor Roosevelt. That's my impression of you, by the way. When you're like, they're bad bitches. And then I think like, and then also like there's an interesting story or side of it with Deonna, like what I referenced earlier, the being a spouse of a veteran after they got out and meeting after they got out. And then like the stuff you guys are doing with Tunnel to Towers. And it's, people are watching, people are seeing, and people are connecting. But you guys couldn't have been more nice to me. I remember we chatted for probably like 30 minutes at that show last year. So I tell people all the time, I love pro wrestling. I used to be ashamed to admit it. I'm not ashamed. I brag about it now. And when people ask me who my favorite wrestler is, like I tell them, I said, Deonna, in my opinion, you are the most underrated wrestler. Like people do not give you enough. It is. And I've seen you wrestle. Yeah. And I remember Steve, I don't know who had a better 2025. You're on that short list across all professional wrestling. I think about your calendar year 25 that I tell people, they always ask me, who's your favorite wrestler? Steve Maclin, and it's just, and it's just like it means something to me. But you guys couldn't have been more nice to me. And you guys are just good people, man.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you.
That's the funny part with wrestling though. Like I love it at conventions. If we're signing together next to each other, people are like, you're actually really nice in person. I'm like, yeah.
Steve, you do look like a jerk, man. I gotta be honest, Steve.
I know.
Yeah, he's so intimidating, and then he's like the softest teddy bear.
I love it because like if people walk by our table and they make eye contact, I'm like, hey, how are you? And then they're like, oh wow, okay. And then you strike up a conversation. It's just I have that resting bitch face, which is fine. But at the same time, like it's good for me in certain ways to use it that way, which is fun. But for me, I'm just like, I'm open to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And that's, again, too, with Boots to Boots. And I love when people come to us and say, really love what you're doing with the podcast. And it's never really about military stuff. They just love the different stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's cool to hear that coming now from fans where they're not even asking us about wrestling questions or talking to, it's like they talk about the podcast, or they, oh, I saw the SNHU commercial.
Yeah.
They're in picture. I saw you on Fox Business with the Tunnel to Tower like PSA. And it's cool to see that.
That is cool.
And it's fun because it's like we're showing the different pairs of boots that we wear. So for you with your podcast and passing the torch as we wrap this up, if you're going to give advice to somebody right now that's taken off their boots and you're going to pass the torch on some knowledge to them and they're scared of what's to come, like what's the advice that you're going to give them?
Man, that's good because I'm still experiencing that myself. That's really relevant. Definitely try to save some money before, because I quick story about, so I got caught, like my retirement date was 1 November. That was also the time of the government shutdown. So my retirement check,
Green Weenie got you good.
So I basically went 2 months without a paycheck. We had some savings ahead of time, right? So, but definitely plan financially ahead of time. And I would tell people, write down, and I'll use this as an example, as a generic number, but most people work 40 hours a week, and you think when they retire from the military, I need to fill my 40 hours now a week. Don't think of it like that. Just think about, I would write down specifically what are things that you want to accomplish. Like if you knew you're going to have 6 months off, give yourself time. I would recommend, if you can, give yourself a 6-month break, because you need time, especially the longer you serve. There's just so many things that are just brainwashed into you that you don't even realize, that you need time just to decompress and just to reacclimate to a new environment. So give yourself some time off, but write down like what are things you want to accomplish individually and then as a family, and keep it as simple as possible and just try to do that. And then job wise, some people, they need to find a job right away. But I just don't sell yourself short. Just get educated. There's so many benefits. LinkedIn. Get LinkedIn, because if you're a military veteran, if you're transitioning, you will get LinkedIn Premium for free for 1 year. And LinkedIn.
Oh, wow.
It's good enough.
Yeah. So I didn't realize that until recently. So I definitely took advantage of that. But LinkedIn's been awesome, and for very a lot of reasons. But that's some of my quick advice.
Yeah, that's something we always like to ask as the last question for all the veterans, because it's like, yeah, everyone's experience is different, and obviously it's so relevant to you and what you're currently going through and what your family is currently going through. But I think that, yeah, the biggest resource we would love to be is someone going through that transition out of the military, and being able to then lean on, whether it's your experience or, we had Tim Jensen from Grunt Style and his experience. He got in and out of the military twice, and Steve's experience. So we just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing that, because I really think those aren't the normal, like, have a good family, have a good support system. Those are like real business acumen tools to help them grow into the next phase of their lives.
And it's also really good to hear too, especially with your retirement and the ceremony, how it went, that you just felt that closure. Because a lot of people don't. I never felt it that way. The day I got out, I had a PFC sign over the book, and I'm like, that's it. And he's like, yep. I was like, well, see you later. So it's like, it just kind of ended that moment. I was all right. I made peace with it. But like, for you to have closure after 23 years is really cool to hear, especially with having 350 some odd people at your ceremony as well. To be there. I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did tear up.
It did. Yeah, there was definitely some good moments, but I caught myself, and but it was a blast. It was so good.
Yeah. Good. Well, awesome. After 23 years, you deserved it. So congratulations.
Thank you. And just, what can I do for you guys? How can I best serve you?
Oh my gosh, you don't need to serve us at all. What we need you to do is tell everyone where they can follow you personally and where they can follow Passing the Torch.
Oh my God, thank you so much. No one ever asked me that, and I've gone on other podcasts. I'm trying to grow my LinkedIn, and I've had some pretty good reach on there. So just Martin Foster on LinkedIn. Also on Instagram, if you just look up Torch Martin, and I follow both Deonna, Boots to Boots, and Steve. And then I'm on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music. For anyone, if you're for anyone like watching or listening, if you're looking for someone to believe in and invest in 2026, consider me. Like I pour so much of my soul into this. Like I truly love it, and I give I give so much of myself to podcasting because it makes me feel like I'm serving others. So if you want to support that and you believe in that, that's where you can find me.
That's a good way to go out.
That's a perfect way to go out. Well, thank you so much for your time. We're so excited to share your story and your current transition with the world. So thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying Boots to Boots, let us know.
Lace up your boots and join the conversation.
Like, subscribe, leave us a comment,
And we'll be talking to you.